Hey, what's up my people? This is IceRestrict12 and today we're going to talk about a really cool Yu-Gi-Oh card that is having a huge impact in the meta. That's right, we're going to talk about Crossout Designator. Now the thing that makes Crossout Designator such an amazing Yu-Gi-Oh card is that it can be used in many different ways. Whether you are a combo player trying to get that crazy board set up and your opponent is trying to stop you, well guess what? Now you have Crossout Designator that as long as you play one copy of that card in your deck, you're going to be able to negate that hand trap. Or if you are playing the mirror match, oh, this card is amazing. You're basically going to have access to everything your opponent has, and since you understand the deck, you're going to be able to stop those very key interactions that are going to ruin your opponent's deck. Alright guys, so stay tuned. Let's go ahead and break this card apart and see how we can play it and how we can beat it. Alright guys, let's go ahead and talk about Crossout Designator and how we can maximize its potential. So what the card basically does is that as long as you have a copy of a card in your deck, you're going to be able to negate that card. So let's say for instance you are a Drytron player, right? And you're about to do those 20 searches that you love doing per turn. Well guess what? Your opponent has a Draw and Lockbird. Well, that's not going to be an issue anymore because as long as you play one copy of Draw and Lockbird, you're going to be able to flip that Crossout Designator, banish that Draw and Lockbird from your deck, and negate that card. And now you're going to be able to do your 20 searches. Now, the only problem with that is keep in mind you are going to have to play the cards that you're trying to stop in your main deck, which means your deck building skills are going to be tested because you're going to make sure that when you're building your deck to accommodate for Crossout Designator, you don't hurt the consistency of your main strategy. The other thing that's going to be, that it's going to challenge you as a player is, okay, so you're going to try to stop certain hand traps that you know your deck dies to. But the problem with that as well is that let's say you're trying to stop an Nibiru the Primal Being. So you have your Crossout Designator, but you also happen to have drawn your one copy of Nibiru the Primal Being. Well, guess what? You're not going to be able to stop it. And the reason why is because that card needs to be in the main deck for you to be able to banish it. So if you drew it, yes, you have it in your card, you can use it, of course, but not for the purpose of using Crossout Designator. Now, in my opinion, the coolest interaction that this card has is in the mirror match. I think this card is amazing for that, and absolutely it is a side deck piece for when you go against someone who's playing the same deck as you. And the reason why is because, think about it, you understand your own deck better than anybody. So if you are playing someone that's playing the same deck as you, you know exactly what key interactions to stop. And having the card in your deck won't be an issue because you're playing the same deck. It works for you. And that, guys, that is how you make the most out of Crossout Designator. And finally, guys, let's go ahead and talk about how we can play around Crossout Designator. Now, one thing that I feel a lot of players fail to understand, or at least don't remember, is that a lot of things have to fall into place for your opponent to successfully be able to use Crossout Designator against you. So for instance, the first one is obviously they need to draw the card. Now, this is a factor. The reason why is because a lot of players are already struggling to try to keep their deck at 40 cards or try to keep it under a certain number. So making room for a card like Crossout Designator might be a very big challenge for a lot of players. So they might not play 3 copies of it, they might play 1 or 2 copies of the card. So trying to stop a hand trap that you're playing 3 copies of, they might not have Crossout Designator at all when you play that hand trap. Now the other thing to remember, guys, is remember that card that they're trying to negate, they need to have it. And they need to have it in the deck. So let's say for instance you activate an Ash Blossom and they did put an Ash Blossom in their deck to try to stop yours, but they happen to draw that Ash Blossom. Guess what? They can use Crossout Designator, and the reason why is because the card that they banished has to be in the deck. Alright guys, and then number 3, the other thing that I feel like a lot of players fail to understand is that chances are your opponent, at least game 1, your opponent is not going to have the hand trap that you're playing. So if you're one of those people that are playing some of those hand traps like, Dimension Shifter that not every deck can play, and you play it in your deck and you activate it, chances are your opponent is not going to have a Dimension Shifter that they can send from their deck to negate yours. So again, a lot of things have to come together for your opponent to successfully be able to use that card against you, and I feel like a lot of times players forget that. Now the other thing, guys, is there's traps. Old-fashioned traps. Right now is an awesome opportunity for you guys to experiment with some of those traps that are not being, as widely used as they used to. So for instance, if you want to play something like, Torrential Tribute, right now will be an awesome time. Not everybody's going to play a Torrential Tribute in their deck so they can negate yours. Control decks that relied a lot on hand traps, now you can play some regular traps and your opponent is not going to be very likely to have them in his deck or her deck to be able to negate yours. Alright guys, so again, like I said, I think Crossout Designator is definitely having an impact, of course, but I think as time goes by, people are going to realize that this card, although it is a very powerful card, it is not the end of hand traps. You're still going to be able to play hand traps. Even if that card is widely used, hand traps still have a place in the TCG, so don't be afraid to play, you know, a couple of hand traps, but beware if your opponent does play Crossout Designator. But again, it is not going to be the death of hand traps. I'm almost certain of that, guys. Alright, well that was the end of the video, guys. If you enjoy my video, if you enjoy my content, please go ahead and give me a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.